is 98. And we'll be celebrating the 100th. No, 100 is a, milestone everywhere, century, somewhere in January. So please participate. It will be we want to have not even single lecture, a series of lectures will be there, and we are not decided what should be there. A lot of activities will be there. So please join for that. So before going to today's lecture, we'll have an introduction of Tamil Nadu Science Forum. Tamil Nadu Science Forum is a voluntary organization that aims to popularize science. It is founded in 1980 by research scholars at Madras University. It has grown to have district units across Tamil Nadu operating under 6 verticals: science communication, science publication. There are 2 publications, Tulir and Jantar Mandar, especially targeting high school students. One is in Tamil and other one is in English. Then third one is education and health, environment and development, gender equality in science, and science for youth. The organization has state level and district level subcommittees for each vertical. Specifically, the science communication group works to promote scientific methods among students and the public, and has recently initiated popular science lectures somewhere in 2018. And we have crossed, this is the 98th lecture for college students, faculty, researchers, and science enthusiasts. And today's speaker, please welcome our distinguished speaker, Dr. Sheetal Poddar, a neuroscientist by profession and a science communicator who has dedicated her career to understanding the intricacies of the brain and behavior. With a background in biology and a passion for storytelling, Dr. Sheetal has explored the neural circuits that regulate sleep, wakefulness, and emotions in fruit flies and other model organisms. Her work has taken her from Jawaharlal Nehru Center for Advanced Scientific Research, Bengaluru, to the Salk Institute in Santiago, and now at Belagavi, where she shares her expertise with wider audiences through writing and science communication. In today's talk, Dr. Sheetal will explore the fascinating world of emotions and internal states and how they shape our behavior. Using simple systems like Drosophila, zebrafish, and C. elegans, she will examine the neural circuitry and molecular mechanisms that underlie emotions and discuss the implications for our understanding of human behavior and brain function. Join us as Dr. Sheetal takes us on a journey to uncover the secrets of emotions and inspires us to appreciate the beauty of the brain and its many mysteries. Once again, join me in welcoming Dr. Sheetal to deliver her talk on emotions.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for a very kind introduction. And before I start, I would like to thank the organizers for giving me this really nice opportunity to sort of, test out my science communication skills in person, apart from just writing. Yeah, and before I, begin, I just wanted to point out that the title of the talk and this picture, it's inspired by this movie series called Inside Out. I'm not sure how many of you have watched it. Those of you who have not watched it, I encourage you to watch it. It's a really good, series of movies to get introduced into thinking about emotions, sort of how emotions control every aspect of our life and shape the way we think and the way we are. It's of course not. It's a movie. It's obviously not going to be fully accurate, but at least it will give you a good flavor of understanding how emotions are important. With that, I'd just like to also give. No. There it is. So just wanted to also share why I thought this will be a good topic. For me, my research career all started in the beautiful campus of JNCASR. Two of my friends from there are here. But most of the, this is a particular place in JNC. It's colloquially called Darwin's Path. A lot of my friends and colleagues, we spent a lot of time walking over here discussing about how behaviors are regulated by the brain. And a lot of what I will talk about today was sort of brainstormed just as, food for thought, just discussions. And of course, none of the work that I'm presenting is derived from those discussions, but just academic conversations, which were a lot of fun to have. And the other thing I want to mention is I studied sleep-wake cycles in fruit flies Drosophila. And just a quick heads up about Drosophila for the uninitiated. They are these tiny little flies that appear almost anytime you leave a fruit out for too long. They really love fruits. That's why they're called fruit flies. Yeah, you might have seen them, especially more during the summers, but they're also they're a very good model organism to study behaviors. And a lot of my examples that I use today will be from fruit flies, but please note that it applies to other model organisms as well. Conversations about behavior, working on sleep in flies, partly motivated me to study more behaviors in Drosophila, and that took me to this place called the Salk Institute in San Diego. And here I examined aggression behaviors in Drosophila. And if time permits, I would probably be able to speak a little bit about what I did there. But the operative word in this slide is Drosophila again. Just want to put a disclaimer that if you came thinking this is going to be about human emotions, then thank you. But it will be about human emotions, but a lot of it will be derived from what we know about, what we know from research in Drosophila and other model organisms. So hopefully it'll be hopefully next time you see a bunch of flies, you won't be so irritated. So with that, let's jump right in. I know all of you are wondering, what are emotions? You probably have asked this question, thought about it. So before I begin, I would like to pose this question to you guys. What do you think are emotions? What are the words that come to your mind when you think about emotions? Anybody? Sorry? Anger. Okay. Anger. What's that? Joy. Joy. Okay, that's good. Happiness. It's a state of mind. That's really good. Yeah. Sorry, I can't hear you. A stimulus towards a particular action. Okay, that's an interesting order of those words. All of those words are important, but we'll see how the order is.
So So biochemical and physiological response to a stimulus.
Great. Biochemical and physiological response to a stimulus. I think we can all go now. Yeah, it is that, but it is also something more deeper, something more philosophical. Anything? Okay, yeah, I think we've got sufficient words to build from. I think we all felt joy when this moment happened. There was a collective emotion felt by all of us when the Indian women's team lifted the World Cup a few days back. And there was a collective sadness felt by many, many more of us, because let's face it, not all of us are Indian women's cricket fans. We all felt sad. Almost 4 days, 4 more days, and it'll be 2 years since this moment happened, right? And these sort of events are very instructive in telling us what emotion is, right? It sort of sets the stage for what emotion is. And of course, joy and sadness are not the only two emotions that we all have. Psychologists have sort of figured out that there are 6 to 8 main emotions, basic emotions, that are called basic emotions because these cannot be broken down further, but combinations of this can give rise to secondary, more complex emotions, especially in human beings. Yeah, and they are kind of opposites of each other. So of course, joy and sadness, they're on opposite sides of the spectrum: anger, fear, disgust, and trust, and so on. Now, of course, these are basic emotions felt by humans. We all know it, we all have it, we have all felt it. But there is, like, when I asked the question, what are emotions, we got a range of answers, right? I think that is very indicative of what has happened in the field, where it is very difficult to define it. Like intuit, it is the paradox of emotion, which you can feel it. You intuitively, you know what it is, but to actually objectively put it in words, it's very hard. And that is what has happened in the field also. And the other ambiguity that has arisen when it comes to the definition of emotion is is that it has colloquially different meanings. So, but before I go into that, let me just give a small etymology of where the word emotion has come from. It comes from the French word, I can't pronounce that, but which means basically agitation, stirring, which initially came from the Latin word, which also meant to be agitated or to move or to be or to agitate, basically, right? And I think in the 17th and 18th centuries, colloquially, as in in everyday language, people used to refer to even bodily disturbances or public displays of chaos, public displays of emotions as emotions. So essentially, if there was a lot of public, irritation about something and they would be protesting or whatever, that would be termed as emotion. So colloquially, it has a very different meaning from what we might understand about it scientifically. And in even today's everyday language, we have this colloquial understanding of emotion. And again, this picture I have only used because I wanted to point out how this guy, Hardik Pandya, just shedding a couple of tears, is being labeled as becoming emotional. Now, this is a very interesting, everyday phenomenon we observe. Whenever we see someone cry, we refer to it as they're being emotional or they're being sensitive or whatever. But actually, you're being emotional even when you're angry, even when you're very, very happy, right? Emotions are many more things other than just crying. So essentially, I'm showing this to to show that colloquially what the word emotion means is kind of different from what it might mean scientifically. And in the 19th century, this word emotion was adopted as a psychological category. Before then, people used to define things as appetites, passions, affections, sentiments. But all of this was brought together into a broad category of emotion only in the 19th century by someone. I forgot. Okay, and now let's try to just come up with a, talk about the scientific definition, which will be important for the rest of the talk as well. And even in the field, as I mentioned, because the word emotion has many different meanings, it has led to a lot of ambiguity and confusion. And even up until today, there is a lot of difference of opinion when it comes to the definition of emotion among psychologists, neuroscientists, and each subfield has its own definition almost. But in 2010, a psychologist called Izzard conducted a survey of his colleagues, and they kind of agreed on this definition, which is to say that emotion consists of neural circuits, response systems, and a feeling state or process that motivates and organizes cognition and action. And we'll break each of this down, so don't be bothered too much by the tough words. And a few years later, I think most of the neuroscientists agree on the following definition, which is to say that it is an internal central state, which is triggered by specific stimuli. Yeah, this sort of is opposite to what someone else said a few minutes back. And then this state is encoded by the activity of neural circuits that give rise to externally observable behaviors and is associated with cognitive, somatic, and physiological responses. And again, we'll break this down. So the operative word in this definition is internal central state. So we'll go to what are internal states. But before we go there, I have another question for the audience, and you can just maybe answer by show of hand. How many of you think that emotion is a human-specific thing and animals cannot feel emotions? Yes, no? Okay, that's good, because that makes my job easy. I don't have to convince that animals have emotions. Of course, we know that animals do have emotions, but the way they express it may be different from how humans express it. All right, so since emotions are internal states, I think it is important for us to understand what internal states mean. And so let's jump right into it. So very simplistically speaking, how is a behavior, and by behavior, I just mean any action that an animal does, walking, talking, eating, sleeping, right? Anything that they do is sort of dependent on the stimuli or the cues that they see in their environment. Sorry, not see, but perceive in their environment. So they are visual cues, auditory cues, gustatory meaning taste cues, olfactory meaning smell cues, right? Mechanosensory meaning touch, pressure, and then there are also these interoceptive cues, which by interoceptive I mean internal cues. That is, the body itself is sending the brain some information about what is happening in the stomach, what is happening in the lungs, and so on, right? And even within the brain, there are different brain regions that are telling the brain that, hey, this is what's going on. So those cues are all taken in by the brain, and somehow the appropriate behavior is sort of expressed, right, or performed, right? So it's actually not as, obviously, I think even you will agree, it's not as simple as that, because there is a key determinant of behavior, which is the internal state, which can be broadly classified into four groups. Arousal, which is this general propensity to, to do something, just this high energy state. If you guys are like me, a cricket fan, then whenever you see Virat Kohli on the field, you will know what I mean by arousal, because he just looks like he wants to get in a fight, or he wants to be involved, or something like that. I mean, at least that's what the commentators all say. So just this high energy state, or this drive to do something, right? This high activity state. And then there are motivation states. So motivation states, of course, you want something, and that's why you are willing to do it. So you want to learn how to ride a bicycle, and that's why even if you fall down 100 times, you are going to keep at it. So that kind of motivation states are also internal states. And emotion, of course, we'll speak about it throughout. But please note that emotions are actually a part of a bunch of internal states, right? So they are a subclass of internal states in some sense. And then perhaps the most intuitively obvious ones are homeostatic needs, like food, water, hunger, thirst, right? Those are also type of internal states. And we'll first define what they are, and then we'll understand it with an example, right? So what are internal states? This is the scientific, whatever, agreed upon definition. Basically, partially hidden variables that shape perception, cognition, action. Again, very similar to how emotion was defined. And the funny thing about internal state is, we know that it is there, but we can't see it, right? So when I say that I feel hungry, I can't tell you where hungry is. It's just there. I am hungry, right? But you can infer the fact that I'm hungry by my actions. So I'm probably eating, or going towards food, or getting really angry, and that's why getting very irritable, and all those things. So changes in behavior, physiology, and neurodynamics can inform you about the internal state of the animal, which it's a very circular thing. If you see, an internal state is a state about the behavior, and the behavior tells you what internal state the animal is in. So but that's because it's like it's this invisible thing. And for something to be called an internal state, it needs to have at least like three or four of these 5 features. Ideally, all of these features, but sometimes it's not always easy to find each of these features. But at least 4 or 5 of these, 3 or 4 of these features are needed. And these are pleiotropy, persistence, scalability, generalizability, and valence. And I will, of course, explain each of these words. And I'll explain it with the help of hunger. I guess apart from cricket, I like food. It's very obvious from my examples also. But anyway, hunger is the physiological, this is again the scientific definition, but we have all felt it. So I really don't need to tell you what hunger is. And I hope you all are not hungry, because this is going to go on for quite a long time. Anyway, hunger is this physiological state of which signals the lack of nutrition, right? It's and sorry, this picture is not very clear, but basically what it is showing is that it affects the entire body in different ways. So for example, and of course here, if you're hungry or starved of food for really long periods of time, that's when these things happen. Obviously, if you go without food for a day, it's not the end of the world. Yeah, so what happens is, wow, even I can't read this, right? Sorry about this. But yeah, essentially, it affects a lot of systems. I just want you to take this from that picture, which is not very clear. But yeah, I think this one is much clearer, and it makes the same point, which is that an internal state has this property, which is pleiotropy. And by pleiotropy, what I mean is that it affects multiple systems, right? So again, hunger, which which many stimuli can trigger, such as food deprivation, or if you burn a lot of calories, or if you use up a lot of your energy stores, it all results in hunger. But what that results in are this bunch of behavioral, physiological, sort of somatic, whole body changes, right? Your decisions are altered. You don't want to interact. Your social behaviors are altered. You don't want to interact with people. You just want to eat food, right? Your anxiety-like behaviors are reduced because you are more explorative. You would rather go to that shady restaurant because it has food than be worried about your own safety in the moment when you're hungry, right? And I do want to come to this last point as well later. But of course, this is what I mean by pleiotropy. A lot of a host of responses are triggered by this internal state of hunger, right? And the other next property is persistence. And by persistence, what I mean is that the behavior continues beyond the initial stimulus, or at least it continues. It's basically a long-lasting effect. So in this picture, there's a fly here, right? And there's like a tube over here. This picture is showing a very simple and very intuitively obvious result, which is that when flies are deprived of food, they end up being hyperactive. They end up being extremely overactive. And basically, this dark blue bar is showing you the activity, the overall activity levels of flies that are fed. And this light blue bar is showing the activity levels of flies that are hungry, right? And very clearly, you can see that the hungry flies are being more active. And this sort of continues over a period of days. So this is day 1. This is the day, nighttime, daytime, nighttime, daytime, nighttime, daytime. And so this is day 1, day 2, and day 3. And you can see that this light blue, which is not very clear, but please take my word that this light blue are flies that were starved, right? And they show this increased levels of activity throughout the time that they're hungry. So this is very simply persistence. And in another example, in this experiment, they used mice, and this is a very common type of experiment that are run. It's called operant conditioning. Again, the name is not really important. What happens is that the mice are trained to expect food in any one of these two holes 50% of the time. Okay, so one time 50% chance that they'll find food at the other side if they poke their nose into the holes, right? So they're trained for multiple days in this way. And then one day, there is no food. They don't get any food, even if they perform the nose poking behavior. So on that day, if you use fed mice and compare their behavior with hungry mice, right? What you find is that the fed mice quickly learn that, oh, they're not going to give us food. Let me not poke my nose there. But the hungry mice are more motivated to find food probably. And that's why they keep poking their nose, even though they know that, or whatever, even though they can learn that there's not going to be food. So this also shows persistence, right? Because they continue to do the behavior of nose poking, even though there is no reward, right? Then scalability, which basically means that the intensity of the behavior that the animal performs scales with the intensity of the stimulus. So again, very easy to understand. If you starve mice for a few hours, such as 18 hours in this case, and then give it female mice to interact with, they'll still interact as much as the fed mice. But if you starve them for 2 days, then they're no longer interested. So the behavior changes with the intensity of the behavior changes with the intensity or the amount of time that they are starved for, right? And here's another example of scalability using an experiment called proboscis extension reflex. Now, this is a very cool thing. Flies actually have receptors, like taste receptors on their legs. So if their legs, if they walk on anything that has sugar, then they will extend their mouth parts to sort of eat it, of course. So in this image, you see that their mouth is in this closed configuration. But once their leg is touching this drop of liquid, which presumably contains sugar, which they like, their mouth is in this open configuration. So you can actually test how sensitive they are to this sugar or whatever there is in the liquid by measuring how many times they open their mouth, right? And so these people did this experiment where, again, the flies were starved for a period of 6 hours to 48 hours. And as the starvation duration increases, the sugar sensitivity also increases. Increases. So basically what it means is that the fed flies will sort of extend their proboscis only for high concentrations of sugar, 800, right? But the starved flies will extend their proboscis even for small concentrations of sugar. And then again, you can appreciate that this is a scalable sort of a gradational response. And then they did another experiment where they added small bits of bitter substances in the sugar solution, and the bitter sensitivity of the starved flies reduced. So what it means is that hungry flies are willing to eat suboptimal food, and this sort of shows generalizability, right? The same behavior of eating is generalized across different stimuli. Another very interesting example of generalizability is that people have found that in rodents like rats, right? Heroin seeking, which is a drug, is also increased in hungry rats. So if a previously drug addicted rat is hungry, then it ends up seeking more heroin. So this sort of shows that hunger is able to regulate the seeking behavior irrespective of what the object is. And in this particular experiment with human subjects, they actually okay, this is a very cool experiment what they did. They like got hold of people who are entering the cafeteria, so they have not yet had food, so presumably they're hungry, right? And then they lied to them and they said, oh, we are doing a consumer survey. What do you feel about these substances? So on the left, you have food items like cookies, pizza, whatever. And on the right, you have non-food items like video camera, binder clips, something else, some backpack, right? And what the people who are entering into the cafeteria, who are presumably hungry, they tended to choose, they were asked to rate whether they would prefer to buy these items. And of course, they chose food items, right? They would prefer food items. But in addition, they also preferred to acquire non-food items like binder clips. So even if what all of this to say that hunger generalizes seeking behaviors. So it's not just seeking food, but also other random objects which may be rewarding in the future, or other reward hijacking substances like heroin and other drugs. Right. So hopefully, I hope I have not bored you too much, but hopefully the main point to keep in mind is that internal states have these different features, and that is what we should be looking for whenever we are studying emotions, right? Oh, and the last point being valence, and valence is again very easy to understand. So anything has either a positive or a negative value. It has some type of valence. So of course, in the case of food, it has a positive value anyway. But in the case, but when you're starved, then of course the importance of food or the value of food increases, and that is what this picture is showing. That the starved flies are concentrated in the area where there are food odors. So basically, this just shows that hunger increases attraction towards food. So yeah, I hope I have explained these terms in a way by which it is easy to understand. So now let's go back to emotions again, right? Now we have understood what internal states are. So how can we apply these principles to what emotions are, right? And before that, I want us to think about emotions theoretically, a little bit from like put on our philosophers' hats and think about the theories that exist in emotion research. And psychologically, like there are many theories, but some of the popular ones are called appraisal theories. And what they propose in this theory is that a stimuli is perceived by the organism, and then there's a cognitive response, there's a motivational response, there's a somatic response, behavioral response, and all of that together results in an emotional experience. Now, the main thing to understand from this is that it's a sequential series hierarchical process. It's a sequential process. So what they're saying is when you see a stimulus or when you perceive a stimulus, you have all of these responses, but in an order. Okay. So to explain with an example, if you see a snake, you see the snake, that's the stimulus. The cognitive response is you decide to run, right? The somatic response is your heart rate increases. And then the behavioral response is that you run. And then all of this combined together to give you the feeling of being afraid. So appraisal theories are telling you that all of these, the behavior happens and then you feel afraid, right? Now, intuitively, it doesn't make sense because at least when I am thinking about this, I would imagine that I see a snake, I feel afraid, and then I run. Rather than I see a snake, I run, and then I feel afraid. But then this is very similar to what that one person in the audience said a few minutes ago. And in spite of this being a weird, sort of a counterintuitive, way of thinking, this theory has hung around mainly because it is very difficult to separate when fear occurs and when the behavior occurs. It is like timing wise, you can't really tell what comes first. It's like the classic chicken and egg problem. And that's why a lot of people adhere to this theory, and still this theory is very well defended even today. But these people, Anderson and Adolphs, they came up with a different theory, which to me and to a lot of neuroscientists makes more intuitive sense. And what they are saying is that emotion is a central state which gives rise to these different expressions or different processes. So essentially, there's a stimulus, and then it impinges on the emotion state, and that gives rise to different responses. So, and in these responses, you also have the subjective reports, which you can only get with humans, right? So, but the one thing to remember or the one thing which is common between these two types of, or these two theories is that they say that it is a multi-component state. So there are multiple components involved in it, and both the theories acknowledge that. And I was very intrigued that when I asked the question, what are emotions? Nobody said feelings. But colloquially, we understand emotions to mean feelings, right? But there's actually a very subtle difference between the two. And that can be explained by this by this theory that emotion is actually a state, whereas feelings are what comes out of that state, right? So behaviorists or people who think that behavior is the only main thing in the in an animal's life subject feelings define feelings as a result or as a consequence of arising due to the conscious awareness of the emotion that is happening. So in other words, you see a snake, right? You enter the fear state, and because you enter this state, your brain becomes, or your conscious self becomes aware of you entering this fear state, and that gives rise to the feeling of being afraid. So and this kind of differentiation between feelings and emotion is important because what Anderson and adults are trying to say is that feelings are a consequence and component of the emotion state. Emotions are not feelings. Feelings are a part of emotions. Okay. And this sort of opens up the avenue that we can now study emotions without worrying about feelings. So in many animals, for example, we don't know what feelings they're feeling. We can only interpret that this is what they're feeling based on what they're behaving, how they're behaving, right? For example, you have a dog, it looks at you, it wags its tail. So you think that it is happy to see you. You don't know whether that is actually true, right? So not worrying about feelings, like separating the feelings away from the emotion state, allows you to study emotions even in dogs, even when you're not sure about what it is actually feeling, right? And then the states are actually evolutionarily conserved, but the feelings are not. Animals can have emotion states even if we cannot know whether they feel them or not, which is exactly what I was trying to say with the dog example here. So, and just to use, again, fear as an example here, the emotion states all show the 5 features that I mentioned in terms of internal states. They all show persistence, scalability, generalizability, and the other 2. And using fear as an example, we know that it is pleiotropic because there's when you feel afraid or when you enter the fear state, your heart rate increases, your respiration rate increases, your body temperature increases, and then you also show your pupils dilate, which means your eyes are widened, right? And then you also show different types of behaviors like freezing, running, escape, whatever. So clearly it affects multiple different processes. So it is pleiotropic. It scales with intensity. So in this experimental paradigm called fear conditioning, you can train lab mice to associate a tone or an audio cue with foot shock. Okay, so you all know about, I mean, you all may have heard of Pavlovian dogs. So the dogs are trained to hear a hear a tone, and then they're given food after that. So every time they hear a bell, they start salivating in anticipation of the food they're about to receive. So similar to that, these mice, instead of food, they are trained to receive a foot shock, okay, which means basically a small shock at the foot, right? So that's obviously not a good feeling. And over time, they become really afraid of that stimulus, which is the foot shock, right? And they show persistence of that fear feeling because they avoid places where they received the food shock. So, and then the they also show scalability because the amount of time that they freeze for increases with the amount of the intensity of the shock that they felt, right? And it's also generalizable, which means that if a certain sound at a certain frequency was associated with food shock, then a different kind of sound can also sort of cause them to freeze. So a different stimulus of the same type can also cause them to perform this behavior, which means that it is all of these 5 features that I spoke about are conserved in this fear state as well, right? So just going to skip this part because basically what this table is telling you is that across humans, mice, and flies, you have similar behaviors, which is when, for example, when you see a threat, your initial response is to freeze. And then once the threat starts coming close to you, you try to escape from it. And that is seen in mice also and in flies as well. In humans, the expressive nature of fear is that eyes are widened, your eyebrows are raised, your mouth is open, you vocalize, you either scream or you gasp or whatever. And that is seen partially, at least in the mouse as well, because the mice also show some ultrasonic vocalizations, which we can't hear, but you can record them. And they show some twitches, and ears and whiskers are like the position of that is changed, which scientists are now thinking that, oh, maybe that is their way of expressing fear, right? And their whole body posture also changes. So there is an expressive component of fear even in mice, right? And then physiologically, everybody, at least humans and mice, they show increased heart rate, sweating, and whatever, reduced heart rate variability. But so far in flies, we have not tested any of these markers. So all of this to show that I just want you to take the fact that the state is conserved across different animal species. But the way they express this state may not be conserved. So again, as I said, humans might express it through behavioral changes, facial expressions, vocalizations. And of course, in the case of humans, you can just simply ask them, what are you feeling? And they will tell you. But you can't do the same for animals. But that doesn't mean that they don't have the emotions. They still have it. And the way they express it may be different. And studying that, how they express it, it will help us understand how emotions are brought about even in humans, right? So far with me. Okay. Cool. But why are these emotions even expressed, right? Why do we express emotions? And these are just ideas as of now. I don't think they've been tested very rigorously, but they may serve some self-centered functions like sensory processing. For example, if you think about, again, I'm going back to fear, but when you think about fear, your eyes are wide, right? So one of the explanations for that is maybe you're trying to sort of perceive as much information as there is about the stimulus that is causing you to be afraid. On the other hand, disgust will make you squint your eyes. You don't want to see it. It's disgusting, right? So you kind of squint your eyes, you pinch your nose, you don't want to smell whatever offensive smell is coming. And that's disgusting. And so these facial expressions have evolved to help you regulate how much of that sensory information you're trying to take in or keep out. So that is one explanation. And then there is a communicative function of emotional expressions. So clearly we are all social beings, and in a social group, it is really important for the for all of us to be on the same page about how we feel about a certain thing, because that helps the entire social group to be protected, right? So there are communicative functions associated with emotion expressions. And then there's feedback functions. So yeah, for example, there was this one study which showed that the neurons which regulate freezing behavior go back and feedback onto the breathing, like the neurons that regulate breathing, to sort of maintain the same level of breathing. So this kind of a feedback helps to maintain a particular state. And that could be why these expressions have evolved. At least those are what people seem to think about. Okay, and now just coming to the, I think this is the final part. So I hope it's been okay so far. So clearly, like, I think we are all agreed on the fact that emotions are expressed in humans. Emotions occur in humans, emotions occur in animals. But what about really tiny organisms like invertebrates, like our flies, worms, right? Charles Darwin, the man you probably know for evolution, also wrote another book called The Expression of Emotions in Man and Animals. And in that, he made a claim that even insects express anger, terror, jealousy, love by their stridulations. And by stridulations, he means wing movements, right? So by moving their wings, they're actually expressing all these emotions, is what he said. And while that was revolutionary at that time, he did not really give a very good, like a framework to study these emotions in insects. But the fact that these emotions exist in insects is not, or in invertebrates, is not a new concept, at least for neuroscientists. So clearly they exist, but why should we care about whether invertebrates have emotions or not, right? How does it matter? If they have it, great. If they don't have it, who cares, right? And I think this is a very important question to ask, because a lot of resources, money, and time is spent by people like me trying to figure out whether emotions exist in invertebrates or not. And it is an important question to ask. And I would like to address that question in two ways. One is by sort of enumerating the power of the model organism, right? Again, here, this list is based on flies as model organisms, but it is applicable to other model organisms like mice, fish, worms, whatever that people want to study. And it's important because these animals are small, they're easy to study, their behaviors are simpler, at least when you compare it with humans, whose behaviors are much more complex. They're easily observable. They have a short lifespan, right? In 2 weeks, I can set up multiple experiments, whereas if you were to do experiments on mice, or even primates like monkeys, it would take months, sometimes years, to perform certain experiments. They are inexpensive, which means, I mean, yeah, compared to mice, they're really, it's really inexpensive to do experiments on flies. They are genetically tractable, and they have genetic tools for neuronal manipulation. I'll explain this in a minute. And as of 2022 or 23, we have a 98% fully mapped neural connectome. And by that, what I mean is that this is a picture of the fly brain. In the fly brain, there are close to 100,000 to 150,000 neurons. Now, we know the position of each of these neurons in relation to the other neurons. And this is an important, again, this is an important information to have. It's like an encyclopedia of information to have, because once you find that, oh, okay, these 10 neurons are important for my behavior, you will be able to understand, you already know how they're regulating that behavior in terms of which neurons are, sending them information, which neurons are they sending information to, and so on. So you can build these neural circuits to map internal states much faster. And just to explain the genetic tools for neuronal manipulation, I'll not go too much into the detail of this, but just without doing a lot of effort, you can manipulate, if you want, you can manipulate each of these neurons individually. And by manipulate, I mean you can either kill the neurons and then see, oh, if these neurons are not present in the brain of the animal, how does the behavior of the animal changes, right? Or you can make them overactive. You can make them much more, you can make them more active than they are supposed to be. So then what happens to the behavior? Or you can make them like lose their function in a different way. And then you can see what happens. So these kinds of neuronal manipulations are possible in these model organisms, which obviously should not be done on humans, right? You should not be doing these kinds of experiments on humans at all. So this picture is of a fly where this green fluorescent protein is expressed all over the body. I just like this picture, so I put it everywhere. But you can imagine, like the idea here is that just like how the green fluorescent protein is expressed all over the body, you can actually have different proteins expressed in tiny subset of cells. And that actually helps us to address a lot of fundamental questions about emotions, such as what are the type of neural circuitries that drive emotion states, or how have emotions evolved, how may have emotions evolved, or in many neuropsychiatric disorders like borderline personality disorder and others, emotions are not regulated very well. So you can model those kind of diseases in smaller animals and then try to figure out what's gone wrong in those diseases. And you can figure out why, like what use emotions serve. And these are just questions that I could come up with. I'm sure there are many, many other questions that can be addressed with the model organism. Okay, and so just as an example, and this is the model that I worked with, so it's very close to my heart. But yeah, fruit flies are aggressive, and their aggressive behavior has different components. So when a fly sees another fly, and if it doesn't like that fly for whatever reason, it will threaten it by just extending its wings in this way and then make itself look bigger and then sort of chase it around and then eventually lunge at it, hit it. And this is a lunge. This is slowed down by 200 times, but it sort of lunges at this fly in this manner. And it also performs this sort of, they tussle with each other. And as I said, it's really slowed down. In real time, it's that fast. They just keep lunging at each other really fast. And that's an example of the threatening behavior where that fly is just chasing the other fly away. No, this is real flies, real flies. Yes, real videos of flies fighting with each other. And yeah, and now we have I had the system to perform these behaviors like almost every day. Yes. No, they actually don't lunge at the opposite sex at all. It's all males. They both are males. They're both, and also lunges are shown only by males. That's the other. Females fight in a different way. They can't lift up their body. Oh, are they fighting for the female? Yes, sometimes they do fight for a female. Sometimes they fight for food. Sometimes they fight just because, yeah, just because they're angry, not because they're males. But yeah. Yeah, and the important thing for our talk and also in general to remember about Drosophila aggression is that it is robust, scalable, sequential, generalizable, and persistent. It sometimes flies if you just keep them, and if they're highly motivated to fight each other, they'll just keep going, like they'll just keep fighting with each other for hours together. This is the person with whom I did my postdoctoral research, and what he found was that just a small set of neurons, right? These magenta neurons, their name is really not important. If you make just these 8 neurons active, more active than they are, then the flies fight more. The magenta here compared to the gray is the control. And if you make them express the, like if you make them hyperactive, and if you also make them express the neuromodulator that they express, right, in addition to being overactive, then also their aggression is much more increased. So, and they show this increased aggression even when there is no food. So basically, they just keep fighting even when there is no reason for them to fight. And a lot of people have said that this is similar to anger. But then again, it's kind of like a controversial statement to make. So I am not saying that I say that, but a lot of people say that. And the other cool experiment that he did was, it's not even like these hyper excited flies attack only flies. He presented a magnet, a small magnet of the size of the fly, and these flies that are, hyper excited, they end up even attacking this magnet. So it's not like it's not like when these neurons are activated, they only need another fly to be to lunge at. So basically, which means that these cells, sort of these neurons, probably control the anger state in flies, because when you hyper excite them, then for no reason they just start attacking, right? Which is very similar to what happens in an angry state, because sometimes for no reason you just get irritated with something, right? And so, yeah, these kind of general principles can be, can be extracted or can be studied with the help of model organisms. And I think there are other general principles. I don't want to go too much into these details, and I'll just quickly wrap up with what is remaining or what is next for the field of emotion research. And again, these are just questions that I could come up with. There are many others, but for example, I mentioned that there are different components of emotions. So we still don't know how those different components are represented in the brain. Like, what are the brain circuits that bring about these different components? And how do they get synchronized? How do they get coordinated? Our emotion states that are studied in the lab, similar to what actually happen in nature? And this is, again, a very important question to ask. Now, I mentioned that if you put, like, if you remember the aggression setup that I showed you, they're enclosed in a very tiny space. If that level of persistent behavior probably would not happen in nature, because in nature, the fly which is getting attacked has the option of just flying away. In our lab setup, that option is not there for it. It's bound by the, it's bound, right? So it's important to understand whether the same kind of principles are also there in the natural world. And how are the different features of emotions like persistence, scalability encoded in the brain? Are these mechanisms same for sadness, joy, hunger, anger, fear, etc.? And how do co-occurring states interact with each other? And this question actually was very interesting to me also, and that is kind of what I did in my postdoctoral fellowship. And very quickly, I'll just go over that. What I did was I used the aggression setup and I made the flies hungry. And then I asked what happens. And what I found was when flies are hungry for protein, then they end up being extremely aggressive. And they are extremely aggressive only when there is a source of protein to fight for. But in other contexts, they're not really that aggressive. So I kind of then figured out the brain neurons, the neurons that are important for this behavior. I manipulated them. I made them overactive, and I found that when they are overactive, they make the flies aggressive, even if the flies are fully fed, right? And so on. There's a whole bunch of stuff that I did. It's not published, so I can't really speak much about it, but I hope that when it does get published, you'll all enjoy reading it. But yeah, with that, I end my talk, and I really hope that you're all feeling 1, 2, and 3 on the Kelvin scale and not 10, 11, and 12 after listening to my talk. But thank you so much. And I'm open to questions, feedback, suggestions. Yes.
Animals are instinctive breeder.
Yes.
Flies is not an animal. It's an insect. Right?
Yeah. Insects are also animals, but okay, go ahead.
So, instinct, emotion, impulsive.
Yes.
All of it, how they are related.
Yes, very good question. And so instinct is something intuitive, right? Instinct means something which is innate. So, for example, it is a behavior which even a tiny fly or a tiny, like a smaller version of a fly, which has not learned from its environment yet, or from its whatever, which has not learned anything yet, even that animal will be able to show that behavior. So for example, I'll give you a human example for instinct. Again, please note that instinct, the way it means colloquially in everyday language, is different from what it means in the world of animal behavior. But in the case of humans, an innate behavior is crying, right? So if a baby wants something, it will just cry. It knows. We have not taught the baby anything. So how does it know that it has to cry? So that is the innate behavior, which is basically it's genetically encoded. It comes with the blueprint that the baby is born with. What was the other thing you asked? Instinct? Impulsive. Impulsive is when, even without any provocation, you do something. So that moving magnet example that I gave fits very well with the impulsive behavior, because that magnet is doing nothing to the fly. It just is there, but still this really angry fly is going and attacking that magnet. And also remember that the magnet is not giving any cues. Like the magnet doesn't smell bad or to the fly, or it's just an object, right? So it's still going and attacking. So that's an impulsive example of impulsive behavior. What was the third one you said?
How they are related to emotion.
How they are related to emotion. That is a very deep question. And I would say that instinctive or innate behaviors can be components of emotion. Impulsive behaviors can be components of emotion. But how they are brought about, we don't know that yet. Sorry? Plants.
So before, sir, we'll reserve the question. Before going for further questions, I know that you are very hungry for, getting the answers for your questions. Before that, we want to honor Dr. Sheetal Poddar by the library authorities.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Now the forum is open for your hunger.
I'm just asking this question because almost everything is governed by evolution.
Yes.
There is struggle for survival and all these
Yes.
things.
Yes.
Ultimately, all these things are related
Yes.
here. So in that sense, do plants also have emotions?
Yeah, that's a very good question. And unfortunately, I don't have a good answer for you. I am someone who could not maintain house plants. I killed them. So, no, but all jokes apart, I honestly like plants communicate with each other through different ways. And they might have it, but I really don't know. Yeah, I can't really answer that question. Sorry. Right. Right. No, that's a good point. And the consciousness part, I think, is definitely known for humans, but also I think the consciousness occurs because of this brain region in the front part of the of the brain. It's called prefrontal cortex, and animals or whoever, or adult age human beings, whoever has some type of prefrontal cortex and activity in the prefrontal cortex are supposed to be conscious. That's why in babies, prefrontal cortex is not very well developed, and that's why they're not fully conscious of their own actions. That doesn't yeah. So I think primates, non-human primates like monkeys, chimpanzees, apes, they are, I think there is evidence that they are conscious of themselves. Yeah.
In terms of comprehension and other thing here.
Sorry?
In terms of comprehension, analytical skill, how do they differ from human?
In terms of?
Comprehension.
I mean,
do they have like that?
They actually do have.
They, unlike us, unlike a human being, they don't do things in their conscious design or something.
No, that is actually not true. Like a lot of experiments done on apes and chimpanzees have shown that they have incredible learning capacity. And there is this one, I think it was a National Geographic or Discovery Channel program where the chimpanzees were taught to, I don't know, chimpanzees or some non-human primate, I'm forgetting which species, but they were taught to press a sequence of things on a screen, and their visual processing is so good that they can actually do it better than humans. And that is again not true only of non-human primates, right? Like many birds, like crows, they have a very incredible sort of a social organization, which is very different from humans, and they are intelligent in their own right, in their own way. But that intelligence and that organization doesn't fit in the definition of human intelligence. So that sort of human-centric view, lets us be very ignorant about other forms of intelligence that these animals show. So it's not, I think they are conscious in their own way. We don't know how to test it. Yeah.
I have a question.
Yes.
This is about human behavior and we've been from younger age, we've been taught, we've been more religious, and we've been taught that there are people in earlier, I mean, in the past that they have developed a consciousness, they've controlled everything around them. Is there any scientific proof that this alpha wave, theta wave, all these things which is existing in YouTube, which is really does exist, or this is a humbug? I just want to know about that.
This is so far away from what I spoke about. I don't know how to answer that question, but from whatever I am aware of, there is no scientific evidence of all of these things. People may claim that they have scientific proof, but their proof is not scientific. They just have something and they call it scientific. It's not scientific in the real sense of the word. So I mean, at this point, I can only say that because I also don't have much information.
One more question. This consciousness of a human being,
Yeah.
that if a person is able to, what do you mean by consciousness is what we thought, the
Hmm.
misconception that we have is, we simply sit in a place, we access our brain, and we control all the emotions so that we become subtle towards any emotion which is coming in front, and then we become so calm, like what Jaggi Vasudev is.
Yeah.
Right? So whether a person who has really achieved the consciousness who was able to control all the hormones in his body, or
Yeah, no.
no,
So, okay,
as it-
from my talk, I really want you to take my takeaway for you is you cannot control your emotions. Okay, emotions are a very natural state that exists for a reason, for many reasons, but they have evolved over centuries to serve some purpose. You cannot, should not control your emotions, but you can let your emotions not drive your decisions, right? So for example, if you get angry at someone, you please feel free to be as angry as you want, but don't translate it into becoming violent with that person, right? That is the distinction that I want to make, which is feeling that emotion is extremely normal. It's extremely human. It's actually extremely, every animal sort of feels that emotion, at least from what I've shown you so far. So please feel those emotions, right? There is no need to suppress those emotions, but you can suppress the way you react, and you can control how you let your emotions take decisions. That I hope it's clear.
Hi.
I think someone else, and then I'll come back to you.
Yeah, so I have a question regarding the mapping of the
Say that again.
regarding the mapping of the neurons.
Sure.
So do they form a functional space? Is there a many-to-one relationship, as in
Hmm.
do a set of activation patterns correspond to one particular emotional state, or do you have?
Yeah, that's a great question. The way we have understood it so far, if I can summarize it in a few words, is again, let me answer it with the help of an example, which is Drosophila aggression. A lot of sets of neurons control Drosophila aggression. It's not just those 8 neurons that I spoke about. There are many other neurons in the brain that control aggression. But how different components of what constitutes aggression, that we don't know yet.
Okay.
And whether they are connected with each other, we don't know that.
And just as a follow-up, so when you are doing this measurement, as in you are triggering a particular emotional state that you have defined, and then you get repeated varying patterns of neuron activation,
Yeah.
but mapped towards the same.
Yeah.
Is the counterfactual also tested where a different emotional state is triggered to see if the same neurons are?
Is the what? Sorry, second part.
No, like how are you testing the counterfactual? So are you also triggering a different emotional state to see if the same patterns may be repeating? Because is there some sort of...
Okay, I think what you're asking is
maybe essentially if the space has injectivity.
Got it. Again, a very good question. And a lot of people are now thinking that these different neural modules exist as independent modules, and combination of those drive different emotions. So there may be central brain states that sort of help to make that combination. So for example, there may be brain areas that regulate crying, and increased heart rate and something else. So when you feel afraid, the crying neurons and the increased heart rate neurons, they come together to make you feel the feeling of being afraid. But when you are angry, in some people, the crying neurons are again expressed or again activated, and increased heart rate on many other things like this feeling of rage and all of those things. They all get activated. So this combination of different neural modules coming together to form a state, that is a very, I think that is being tested nowadays. It's an idea that is being
This question is also, like, the relationship is 1 to many and many to 1.
1 to many, many to 1. Yes. 1 to many as in one neuron, many many emotions, or many neurons, one emotion, right? So for now, I think it is many neurons, one emotion. That's where it is. That's how it is being mapped.
Okay, so then sort of the mathematical modeling is to go towards a linear function and not.
Or towards a combinatorial function.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. Or actually, some people in the back.
Quickly, quickly.
I'll come to you.
Madam, when we are emotional human beings, like when we feel affectionate towards our kids,
Yeah.
so the parts of the brain have some parts of the brain are activated that time. When we do our reasoning, logical thinking work, other parts of the brain will get activated.
Yeah.
So my question is to you: how much of the neuronal your study can be extrapolated to
Yeah.
understanding human brain functions? Because humans do have emotions and rationality,
Yeah.
but flies, do they have rationality? Because otherwise it's all about genetic imprint of those insect like those flies which are evolutionarily conserved. But that is a distinction.
Yeah. Yes, to the fact that there is rationality and there is affection. People are studying parental behavior in mice and other rodents, and I think non-human primates also. I think more research into those topics will help us understand the distinction between these two. Flies, as far as I know, they don't show parental behavior towards they don't, yeah, their ecology is completely different. They don't know who their kids are. Yeah. Yes.
Then, being human being, we are supposed to be more assertive. We are supposed to be more assertive rather than being aggressive, right? So our prefrontal cortex plays a big role being assertive and human intelligence. So
Yeah. Assertive and aggressive. That's the keywords I got. I'm not sure where you are getting the fact that human beings have to be assertive. Human beings don't have to be assertive. They can be whatever they want. The second part, not sure what you asked actually.
prefrontal cortex takes a big role in human intelligence. So how can we increase the function of?
Prefrontal cortex is important for human intelligence, consciousness, awareness, all of these, I think, functions. I don't know if you can artificially increase its function through. I know that a lot of people peddle this kind of. I really don't want to use certain words. This is going on YouTube. Yeah, they peddle this kind of information, misinformation, or whatever about being able to control your brain regions. No, it's not possible. Yeah, that's all I have to say. Neuroplasticity means that your neural circuits are flexible, that different neurons can take up different functions and so on. Someone else has a question.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, I have a very general doubt on the basics of doing experiments on animals, especially monkeys.
Sure.
In general, when we do experiments in humans, we do it in a way that they don't understand that they're being experimented, because that will have an effect on the results of the experiment. So that being said, do monkeys have the ability of having an awareness that they are being tested, and how is that neglected? Do they have the ability to do that?
Right. Okay. So the first part of your question, that's not entirely true. So there are many different types of experiments that are done on humans. Okay. There are experiments in which the people know exactly what the experimenter is testing for. And then there are experiment setups where the human subjects don't know what they're looking for. So And then there are experimental setups where even the experimenter doesn't know that these are the human subjects that they are working on or what group they belong to. It's called double-blind study, where even the experimenter doesn't know whether the human subject is receiving the experimental condition or the control condition and so on. So it is actually very difficult to fake answers for human subjects because the experiments are designed in such a way that you acknowledge that it is possible to fake, and then you control for those this thing. And any study doesn't depend only on one experiment. It's always a bunch of experiments, some pilot experiments done so that you can control for all of these issues, and then you sort of perform your main experiment. With monkeys, whether they're aware or not, I am not sure. And pretty sure that the same systems that we apply for humans, we can apply for monkeys as well. Yeah.
So there is a question in, there are 3 questions in from
Okay.
YouTube.
Sure.
First question is, I saw when a dog is in fear state, it insert the tail between the legs. Can we call this as its feeling?
We can call it as its fear emotion state. We can call it as an expression of its emotion state, which is fear.
So,
Yeah. And yes, actually subjective feelings, yes, we unless we get it from the dog, we won't be able to understand whether that is its feeling or not. That is the problem with the word feeling. It is a subjective, it's a personal, thing that the organism is feeling. So it's really hard to get an answer about that. Yeah.
next question is, for similar stimuli, how do different levels of emotions happens for different people?
Yes. That's again a very good question. And that kind of subjectivity is sort of seen in humans, in flies, like the same stimulus. Like, for example, I showed you flies that were fighting with each other. But even if a fly is equally, agitated, it won't perform the behavior in the same way. So, for example, in the case of hungry flies, right, if they're hungry for too long, they get very weak afterwards. So they may be very angry that they're hungry, but they won't be able to perform that behavior because they simply don't have the energy to perform. So the expression of the emotion does vary from person to person, and the emotion that a person feels to a particular stimulus also varies. So in some cases, people might get anxious. In some cases, somebody else might get angry about the same thing. Yes, that is true. But how those are studied, I don't think we have got to a point where we can study those things yet.
Last question is there any way to measure the emotions?
Yes, yes, in humans, you can simply ask how you're feeling on a certain scale. In non-human primates, and I mean, in every other animal species that you want to study, you just look at their behavior and you try to measure their behavior, try to measure the intensity of their behavior, try to measure the amount of time that those behaviors are persistent for, and then you get a picture of how the emotion looks like in that animal.
Hi, ma'am. I want to ask question.
Sorry?
Quantitative measurement for emotions are like that?
Yes, of course. That's exactly what we do in all of our experiments. They are all quantitative measurements, like how many lunges did a fly do, for how long it was lunging at. Those are all quantitative measurements, right?
Is this all kinds of emotion exhibits in all kind of organisms? Or
Yes.
were not developed from each other or
That-
evolved from it?
Very good question. And the answer to that is, I think there are many human emotions which have not been found in other animals. Like, for example, one good example I like to give is this emotion of, I might be butchering the pronunciation, but Schadenfreude. It's a German term, but what it means is that you get joy out of other people's suffering. So pretty sure have not been found in, yeah, sadism, yes. Pretty sure those kind of emotions have not been found in other animals. I don't think we have found an emotional equivalent for embarrassment. What else? Yeah, those are the examples I can think of at the moment, but yes.
Is this all evolved from one emotion to others?
Again, a very good question, and the answer to that is we don't know, because but these kinds of model organisms will help us to answer that question. Yeah, nice.
The whole beta series should be out. Just take it.
Yes, please.
So, just one question. So, in the normal ads, like whether it's a Facebook reel or anything, right?
Yeah.
There are some emotions being triggered, like for viral videos and so on.
Yeah.
Is there any particular pattern or is there formula kind of thing is being researched? Which one?
I'm fairly sure that the marketers and market researchers of Facebook and Instagram would have the answer to that. I don't know, but they probably are doing something along those lines.
Ma'am, actually, recently I have came across a study. I am not sure about what it is,
Sure.
but in the infants, the baby, that study was being done, and it has been seen that the emotion that they express, they just get it, they learn it from the parents, the way they react.
Yeah.
Then how this study that is has been done in the model organism can be applicable to us?
Yeah, so you are asking about learning to display certain emotions in a certain way, right?
Yes.
Yeah. That might be hard to study in invertebrates, I think, because our way of looking at invertebrate emotions or states or whatever is only through behavior, right? And so far we have only looked at innate behaviors, like aggression, food acquisition, those kinds of things. But actually, you know what? There's a bunch of bumblebee studies and honeybee studies that do this kind of learning paradigms, social learning paradigms, where they teach, like one bee teaches the other bee where good food is, or that kind of stuff. So I'm sure people can utilize those kind of organisms to also teach each other emotions. And also there is this one idea called emotional contagion. What it means is, in a group, you communicate that this is the emotion I'm feeling, and then the others learn about your emotion and then decide what they want to do with that. And that kind of studies also can be done, I think, in bumblebees, but I don't know whether those have been done or not.
There are
Yeah.
studies on elephants that mourn
Right.
as a group.
Right.
I think they're the closest to humans when it comes to expressing their emotions.
Right.
And if they can mourn, the same thing
Right.
is contagion, right?
Right.
So emotions are not just innate,
Right.
they can be acquired.
It can be acquired. Yes. Good point. Thank you. I didn't know about elephants.
Our genetic makeup for orangutan.
Yes.
More than about 98%.
Sure.
What is the genetic makeup of flies?
Genetically, flies and humans are 75% similar.
Okay.
Yeah, about 75%.
So you said in your slide, the hunger-induced rats.
Yeah.
Hunger-induced rats sought heroin, an addictive substance.
Yeah.
But humans too are addictive. Say some people are addictive towards caffeine.
Yeah.
Some people are addictive towards some addictive substance.
Yeah.
So hunger-induced rats, when they are going and seeking addictive thing, they are aware, because an addiction in the human behavior, the people who are addictive are aware, but that doesn't necessarily mean to action.
So they are not aware. First of all, rats are not aware.
Okay.
And I think, okay, maybe humans may be aware that they are addicted and, they should not be doing something, but then they can't really control that.
Yeah.
But rats are not aware.
Okay.
And at least as far as I am aware. But what was your question?
Yeah, I mean, my question is like, the awareness is one point. People are interchangeably using consciousness and awareness when it comes to explaining the human things. So is there a thing like you said in your slide, hunger-induced rat, is it aware that I am hungry? Or
It's
is it
aware that it is hungry, but because, I mean, clear, okay, I can't answer whether it is aware that it is hungry or not. From its behavior, we can say that, okay, it is hungry and it is going towards food or whatever else is available. I don't know whether we can say whether it is aware or not.
I think the stimulus in the response system
Hmm.
on the whole has got some limitations. So beyond this, there are some questions can be answered, some questions.
Yeah, exactly. Because after all, you can only answer what you can see. And maybe we need better systems to ask different questions of these animals. Like, and we are not equipped to ask those questions because we can't think like that.
My question to you is, I don't know what you think about this. We've been governed by advertisements nowadays. Yeah, our whole life is run through advertisements. And the emotions which are generated through these ads, what would you say to that? Those emotions, are they the true emotions? Are they false? Are they positive, negative? Because as far as I see it, the advertisements serve one purpose, is to lie to a customer, right? In whatever way possible. And it's up to you to take it on board because it's so commonplace now. And it sort of runs our life. What do you think are the emotions generated? Are they true or false, positive, negative?
I mean, true, false, I can't say. But what I can say is the ads and marketers have figured out very well how to hijack the emotions of people. So, I mean, that's the only thing I can say.
I think it is more to do with the biochemical response to the body. Right, we have those dopamines, those serotonins. What gets stimulated when you see something, and and it is a pleasurable state.
Right.
And as humans, as sentient beings, not just humans, every living being moves towards pleasure and avoids pain.
Right.
That is we are genetically tuned to do.
Sure.
So what the marketers do in some
Yeah.
sense is play around our biochemical,
Yeah.
entities and ensure that there are more pleasure hormones or whatever that's stimulated, however short or long.
Yeah.
And that is what makes us drive certain decisions.
Yeah. Yeah. Whether it is good or bad, that we can't say. Whether it is true or false, also we can't say, because what is false emotion like that? I mean, humans have this ability to fake their emotions. That is true. And that can lead to, cheating, deceit, all these kinds of behaviors. But I don't see what advertisers will get out of eliciting fake emotions from people. Okay, fine.
It is a form of deceit. Ultimately.
Yeah, it is a form of deceit. That is true.
Actually, your flight model is Drosophila melanogaster is a better model than studying humans, because when you said humans can still fake their emotions, so their behavior studies may not be 100% accurate.
Yeah.
There'll not be a lot of biases.
Yeah.
Some of it preconceived and actually said.
Yeah.
Whereas they are just what they are.
Yeah. I thank you. I've done my job.
Some people are showing some more emotional during a full moon day.
Oh gosh. Okay.
Do you have any? Some evidences are there. We are any weather or any climate change, whether it is inducing any people emotions.
I will answer it in this way. Lunar cycles, that is what you're referring to. Those do have an impact on our certain rhythms, okay, certain biological rhythms. We don't know if emotions are also under the control of lunar cycles. I mean, scientifically, I am not aware of any study that has looked into that. Scientifically, yeah.
More question, this polygraph test, no? The lie detecting test.
Sorry,
Polygraph test.
Lie detection test. Yes.
What is your opinion on that?
I have no opinion on that. I genuinely don't know much about it. Okay, from what I remember, I think it measures your heart rate or heart rate variability. And that is like heart rate variability heart rate varies a lot with certain kinds of emotions. For example, in fear, anger, the heart beats at different rates, right? Yeah, I mean, that's all I know about it.
So I add to that.
Sure.
I did my master's in forensics.
Yeah.
So polygraph is a test that used to be used quite extensively earlier on, but the reliability and the admissibility in the court of law is very subjective nowadays for a very simple reason that if you are a hardcore criminal and if you're used to, you don't even have to be a hardcore criminal. If you're used to lying and you persistently use the same lie over and over again, then a polygraph can actually not detect it at all. So that's the difference between a seasoned hardcore criminal and a novice. So I don't think polygraph is any more admissible in the court.
So that can be another topic
Thank you.
for another lecture. Yeah, we will try to incorporate that. There's one last question.
Hi. So going forward in terms of looking at model organisms to model human behavior, pattern human behavior, do you think it is still prudent to choose one single model organism, or would you rather build experiments which, because my field is in physics, and when I am looking at data sets and combining them from different experiments, it causes a lot of issues. Is that something that happens when you do cross species? Because I imagine the overlap would not be exactly the same either.
Yeah, I mean, I would not use different model organisms to study human behavior. I would use different model organisms to study behavior in general. And you are actually studying animal's behavior. So if I understand your question correctly, which model organism would I choose, or would I choose multiple model? Yeah.
A lot of points were raised about how community learning.
Sure. Yeah, yeah, exactly. And that's a good question, because the choice of model organism really depends on what you're trying to answer. So if you're looking at social, behaviors, it's better to choose a model organism which is a social being at the very least, right? So, but for innate behaviors and for innate drives like hunger, thirst, every animal feels those states. So you can literally use anything in your that you have the capacity to study, and that is good enough. Yeah, but it is true that if similar things or similar insights can be generalized from many models, of course there is a universality to it, but with biology that kind of universality is very difficult, because I mean, complexity is the only universality in biology. So yeah, there's very few universal theories, like for example evolution is one, and beyond that maybe Mendelian genetics is another, but there's very few such core principles that you can, and of course DNA, RNA, whatever that, I keep forgetting that, but yeah, but you got my point.
So thank you very much for your, generating enough curiosity. Give a big applause to the people. So next week, there is another lecture on chemistry, that is Nobel Prize for this year's Nobel Prize, that is MOF. Next week also one lecture is there, that will be in the So as I told you, going to have this 100th lecture from January. So keep coming. And those who want the participation certificate has to submit the feedback. There is a